Okay, let's unpack this. We look at a lot of documents on this show, business strategy, history, tech trends. But today we are looking at something that feels like a collision between ancient theology and high-energy physics.
That is a very specific way to describe it, but honestly, it fits.
Right.
It's rare we get a source text that tries to map spiritual concepts onto what feels like, yeah, the laws of thermodynamics.
I mean, I'm reading this text, and it's talking about biblical prophecy, Jacob and Esau, the Messiah. Pretty standard theological stuff on the surface.
Sure.
But then right out of the gate, it drops this metaphor that completely hooked me. It talks about the word capital W acting like electricity.
It's a striking image, and it really does set the tone for the entire document we're diving into today, which is titled The Two Seeds and the Living Word.
The two seeds and the living word. It sounds epic.
Yeah.
But before we get carried away, what are we actually looking at here?
So this is a theological text. It examines the nature of divine power, the human condition, and what it calls a cosmic conflict. But you're right to latch onto that electricity metaphor. The core mission of this deep dive is really to understand the source's central argument, that there is a fundamental resistance in the world and inside people to a divine flow.
And the text proposes a very specific way that resistance is overcome. Now, I do want to throw out a quick disclaimer here. We are going to be using some very specific language from the source names like Yahuwah, Elohim, Messiah, Yahushua.
Right, and it's important to be clear. Our goal here isn't to preach or endorse a specific doctrine. We are not here to convert anyone.
Absolutely not.
We are here to analyze the ideas and the structures presented in the text objectively. We want to see how the author connects these ancient scriptures to these really fascinating concepts of energy and physics.
Exactly. We're looking at the mechanics of the argument. So let's go back to that electricity concept. The text literally says the word moves like living power like electricity.
It does.
Usually when people talk about the word in a religious context, they mean communication, information. But this is saying it's a force.
Yes. And here's where it gets fascinating. The text posits that this word flows freely where there is acceptance. But, and this is the key, it intensifies where there is resistance.
Okay, like a circuit board.
Exactly like a circuit board. If you have a superconductor, the current just flows. No heat, no loss.
Right.
But if you put a resistor in there,
You get heat.
friction. Exactly. The text says, where resistance is great, pressure increases. Where surrender is complete, the flow is unhindered.
That's interesting because it reframes the whole concept of suffering or judgment. It's arguing that the word isn't just passive information you can ignore, it's an active force. If you block it, things get hot.
Precisely. And the source backs this up with a pretty intense verse from Jeremiah. It quotes, "Is not my word like fire and like a hammer that shatters the rock?"
A hammer. That sounds destructive. Usually you think of the word or divine messages as comforting or, peaceful. This source is describing it as violent.
It describes it as violent only when it encounters something hard. A hammer doesn't shatter water. It passes right through it. It shatters the rock because the rock refuses to yield.
So the violence isn't malice, it's physics. It's what happens when an immovable object meets an irresistible force.
That's the argument. And the text takes this idea of the word and places it way, way back in time. It cites John 1.1, in the beginning was the word.
Right, from the very start.
From the start. But here's the nuance the source adds that really twisted my brain a bit. It claims this word judges the heart before any physical action is taken.
Wait, hold on, before I even do anything. How can you be judged before you commit an act? That sounds like the movie Minority Report.
It does sound like pre-crime, doesn't it? But look at it through the electricity metaphor again.
Okay.
The text argues that this force is so primal, so foundational, that it assesses the alignment or resistance of a being before they've physically done anything.
So it's not checking a list of naughty or nice deeds. It's checking your conductivity.
That is a perfect way to put it. Before flesh acts, before breath even enters the nostrils. The text argues that the word knows if you are a conductor or an insulator.
That is intense. It sort of reframes the whole idea of judgment from a courtroom scene to more of a physical reaction. Like, if you're conductive, the electricity passes through. If you're an insulator, you burn up.
And that leads us directly into the main narrative arc of the source, the tale of two seeds.
Right.
Because the text argues that historically we see these two types of materials, conductors, and insulators personified.
Ah, yes. Jacob and Esau. The classic sibling rivalry. I remember this from, Sunday school. But in this text, they seem to be doing some heavy lifting as archetypes.
They are. They aren't just brothers arguing over a bowl of stew in this analysis. They represent the two fundamental responses to this flow we just talked about.
So why them specifically?
Because of that concept of pre-existence we just mentioned, the source cites Romans and Malachi. It points out that they were set apart before birth.
There's that famous kind of difficult line.
Yes. Jacob I have loved, but Esau I have hated.
Yeah, we have to stop there. Hated is such a strong word. It feels incredibly harsh, especially for a baby that hasn't even been born yet. Is the text saying the Creator just arbitrarily picked a favorite?
It feels that way to our modern sensibilities for sure, but the source argues against arbitrariness. If we look at it through that electricity metaphor, hate in this context is about structural misalignment.
So it's not emotional hate, it's a functional incompatibility.
Right. Think of it less like a parent hating a child and more like an engineer hating a rusty wire in a high-voltage system.
It simply can't carry the load.
It just can't.
Yeah.
And the text points to what Esau did. It highlights that he despised his birthright.
Right, he sold it for what? A bowl of soup.
For a bowl of lentils. He came in from the field, he was exhausted, famished, and he demanded immediate satisfaction. He traded his long-term inheritance for that meal.
The profane exchange.
Exactly. The text describes this as resistance through appetite, effort, and profane exchange. He valued the perishable over the eternal.
That actually sounds remarkably modern. I mean, trading long-term value for a dopamine hit right now, that's basically our entire economy.
It is, isn't it? And that's the point the text is making. Esau is the resistor because he blocks the flow of the future promise, because he's entirely consumed by the immediate demands of his flesh.
He stops the current because he can't see past his own hunger.
Precisely.
Okay, so Esau is resistance. He's the insulator. Then what is Jacob? Because if I recall correctly, Jacob wasn't exactly a saint.
Far from it.
He's a trickster, a liar. He stole the blessing. How is he the conductor?
And the source acknowledges that. It says Jacob was imperfect. But, and here's the critical distinction, Jacob wrestled rather than resisted.
Wrestled rather than resisted. That's a really specific distinction. Unpack that for me.
Well, think about that story in Genesis. Jacob physically wrestles with a divine figure all night long. He refuses to let go until he gets a blessing. The text argues that wrestling implies a desire for the promise. He wanted the connection. He might have struggled with it, been messy, been manipulative, but he was engaging with the flow.
So Esau's sin wasn't that he struggled, it's that he just didn't care.
Precisely. Esau turned away. Jacob grabbed hold and wouldn't let go. Resistance isn't struggling. Resistance is apathy. It's trading the big picture for a snack.
So Jacob, for all his faults, was conductive. He allowed the energy to move through him, even if it meant getting his hip dislocated in the process.
That's the idea. And the text asserts that this isn't just ancient history. It claims this is the present condition of all creation.
So it's a binary choice.
2 seeds, 2 ways, but 1 word. It quotes Deuteronomy. I have set before you life and death, therefore choose life.
So in the text view, every person is basically functioning as either a Jacob or an Esau at any given moment. You're either wrestling toward the promise or you're resisting it for some temporary gain.
That's the binary. And it's a terrifying one if you think about it, because we all have a bit of Esau in us.
We definitely do. So if we have this binary conflict resistance versus wrestling, how does it get resolved? I mean, you need a hero, right? Jacob is too flawed.
Right. Jacob is a conductor, but he's a distinctively imperfect one. And that brings us to the unifier. The source introduces Messiah Yahushua as the solution.
And what makes him different? Why can he fix this?
The source argues that he possesses a unique authority. He carries authority over both conditions without being corrupted by either.
Both conditions. You mean he has a bit of Esau in him?
Not in the sense of sin, but in the sense of lineage and role. The text calls him the seed of Jacob. So he's the heir of the promise, but also the ruler from Judah.
Ah, the lion and the lamb duality.
Exactly. He is the Lion of Judah, representing power and kingship, but he is also the lamb slain, representing sacrifice and submission.
King and servant, judge and redeemer. That's standard theology, though. How does the physics metaphor apply here?
This is where it gets really interesting. The text says, he entered fully into the condition of fallen flesh.
Okay.
Think about our circuit analogy. The world humanity is a high-resistance environment. It's full of Esau's, full of insulation.
So he stepped into the circuit.
He became part of the circuit. He took on the physical form that usually resists the divine flow. But, and this is crucial, he did not yield to it.
He was tempted, but without sin. That's from Hebrews.
Right, and Romans says he condemned sin in the flesh.
Hold on, let me see if I have this right. The claim is that he entered our same physical reality, this high-resistance environment, but he somehow had zero resistance internally. He was a superconductor in a room full of insulators.
That is a perfect way to put it. He didn't block the flow. He allowed the divine will to pass through him completely, even when it led to death.
And because of that,
Because he offered no resistance, the current of the word flowed through him perfectly, and the source argues that gives him the authority to separate the servants from the rebels.
and how does that separation happen? Is it arbitrary, like picking teams in gym class?
No, and the source is very specific about this. It's not based on favoritism, it's based on the response to the word. It quotes Isaiah, "My servants shall eat, but you shall be hungry. My servants shall rejoice, but you shall be ashamed."
So it's a reaction.
Yes, the word goes out. If you are a servant, a wrestler, a conductor, you eat, you rejoice, you absorb the energy.
And if you're a rebel, a resistor.
You go hungry. The separation is a natural consequence of your alignment to the flow.
So we have the Messiah acting as this perfect conductor, but the text suggests his presence forces a decision. And that's where the imagery shifts to something much harder. The outline mentions the witness of stones. This felt a bit disconnected to me when I read it. Why stones?
It does seem like a jump, but it's actually reinforcing the hammer idea from earlier.
Yeah.
The source claims the stone is always a witness.
In what sense?
Well, think about a stone. It's the ultimate solid matter. It doesn't change. It doesn't spin the truth. It just is. The text points to Jacob anointing the stone at Bethel, but then it connects that to the Messiah being the stone the builders rejected.
The cornerstone.
Right. But the function of the stone in this text is to expose, divide, and judge. If you fall on a stone, you break. If it falls on you, it crushes you. It's the ultimate object of reality. You can't argue with a stone.
It's binary again. You either build on it or you stumble over it.
Exactly. And then the text zooms out. We've been looking at individuals. Now it looks at the visible structures of the earth, the nations, and it connects them to the imagery of horses.
Horses, like the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse.
Yes, the horses of the prophets. It mentions Zechariah and Revelation, white, red, black, pale, but it describes nations as being locked in a kind of stampede of resistance.
A chaotic picture.
Mm-hmm.
Why horses specifically?
Horses represent strength, military power, drive. But in this text, they are driven by the flesh. They represent human systems trying to run the world without the divine flow.
And the source connects this back to Esau.
It does. It brings up this fascinating detail. The text highlights that Esau joined with Ishmael.
Oh, I missed that part.
It's in Genesis. When Esau saw that his parents weren't happy with his Canaanite wives, he went to Ishmael, Abraham's other son, who was outside the promise, and married his daughter.
And the text calls this.
Forming bonds outside the promise.
So it's like resistance teaming up with more resistance.
Basically, it's the continuation of the ancient conflict. Cain against Abel, Esau against Jacob. The text sees the chaotic state of the nations as a direct result of these fleshly alliances.
So geopolitics, in this view, is just a giant churning sea of resistance.
A sea that cannot rest.
This is pretty heavy stuff. We've got cosmic conflict, history, nations. But then the text takes a sharp turn inward. It stops talking about geopolitics and starts talking about me.
The inner war. This is where the rubber meets the road. The text argues that this war isn't just external, it exists within all of us. It quotes Galatians. The flesh lusts against the spirit.
So I have an Esau and a Jacob inside of me.
Effectively, yes. And the source gives a definition of Satan here that is quite unique. It says, opposition itself, Satan, is resistance to the flow of the word.
Wow. So it's not necessarily a guy in a red suit with a pitchfork. It's the physics of resistance.
In the context of this argument, yes. The word Satan literally means adversary. The text is saying that anything in you, your ego, your appetite, your fear, that resists the flow is functioning as Satan.
It's the internal insulator.
Blocking the current.
So how do you win that war? If the resistance is inside me, if it is me in a way, how do I get rid of it without getting rid of myself?
That's the paradox. And the solution the text offers sounds, well, painful. It introduces the sword.
From Hebrews, right?
Hebrews 4.12. The word of Elohim is sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing even to the dividing of soul and spirit.
Dividing soul and spirit, that sounds surgical. And frankly, terrifying. I don't want to be cut.
No one does. That's why we resist. But the text argues this cutting is necessary. It explains that the Messiah places the temple within. But to do that, There has to be a cutting away of what must be forgotten.
What must be forgotten? The Esau nature.
The part of you that wants the lentils right now. The idea is that the word cuts away the resistance so that the true self can be reconciled to the Creator.
So the division isn't to destroy you, it's to save the Jacob inside by cutting away the Esau.
The source puts it beautifully. This division is not destruction, it is restoration. Two made one.
Two made one. That's the goal.
That's the kingdom. A kingdom not made with hands, as Daniel puts it. An internal reality where the resistance has been surgically removed by the word.
This brings us to the end of the text, the final resolution. We've gone from electricity to resistance, wrestling, the stone, the sword. Where does it all end?
It ends with the end of resistance.
And what does that look like?
The text turns to Deuteronomy. Hear, O Israel, Yahuwah or Elohim, Yahuwah is one. And it pairs that with the command to love Yahuwah and love your neighbor.
So love is the final state.
But think about love in terms of the physics we've been discussing. The logic of the source is this. Where love is perfected, resistance ends.
Oh, I see. If I love the Creator, I'm not fighting His will. If I love my neighbor, I'm not competing with him.
Exactly. You are perfectly conductive. The text says, where resistance ends, flow is unhindered. No pressure, no delay. Only righteousness.
That brings us back to the electricity metaphor one last time. A superconductor. No resistance means infinite flow with no heat, no pressure.
Just pure power. And it closes with Romans 8.2. The law of the Spirit of life in Messiah Yahushua has set you free from the law of sin and death.
So freedom isn't doing whatever you want.
Freedom is the absence of resistance.
That is a completely different way to think about it. Usually freedom means I can do what I want, but this is saying freedom is I am in perfect alignment so I don't feel the pressure anymore.
It's the difference between crashing through the waves and surfing them. One is resistance, the other is flow.
This has been quite a journey through this text. It really challenges you to stop looking at these biblical stories as just moral fables and start seeing them as, well, descriptions of how reality functions.
Action and reaction. Flow and resistance. It asks you to stop seeing religion as a club you join and start seeing it as a force you align with.
And that leads us to our final thought for you, the listener. We always like to leave you with something to chew on.
I keep coming back to that phrase, two made one, and the idea of the cutting. The source suggests that true freedom comes not from avoiding the pain of the word, but from allowing it.
Right.
We tend to view any kind of internal conflict, guilt, or spiritual pain as something to be medicated or ignored. We want to numb the resistance.
We eat the lentils to feel better.
Exactly. But the source implies that the pain, the pressure from the electricity is actually an indicator. It's telling you exactly where the blockage is. So here is the question for you. How do you view the resistance in your own life? When you feel that internal friction, that pressure, do you see it as just an obstacle to your happiness? Or could you start to see it as a diagnostic light on the dashboard? Is it showing you exactly where the flow is blocked and where the cutting needs to happen to turn that binary conflict into a unified whole?
That is a powerful question. Instead of running from the friction, maybe we need to ask what it's trying to burn away. As always, thank you for diving in with us.
A pleasure.
We'll catch you on the next deep dive.